How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about Total Recall. This movie is an absolute classic. It's one of the best science fiction movies, one of the best action movies, and one of the best Arnold movies. It's really, really cool, and I definitely recommend checking this one out if you haven't. This is the original from 1990. Make sure you check out the original if you haven't seen this one before. And we've got lots of really cool people that worked on this movie. So let's start off really quickly talking through some of those credits. This movie is directed by Paul Verhoeven, who you also know for Starship Troopers and RoboCop. Classic science fiction under his belt. This movie stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Rachel Ticotin, Sharon Stone, and the villain is played by Michael Ironside. Really great cast, and as always, Arnold is a classic action star for a reason, and he's super fun in this movie. He starts out as kind of an everyman character with a dream he doesn't think he'll ever accomplish. However, he finds himself to actually be an action star. He transitions to this role effortlessly, and it's a ton of fun. And, classic action gags and one-liners and great sequences, and always great to see Arnold. Anyway, with the writing, this is based on a short story, We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, by Philip K. Dick. You guys may recognize that name. Philip K. Dick also made the source material for Blade Runner and Minority Report, and wrote several classic novels and short stories. I would definitely recommend checking out his short stories. Really fun, crazy concepts, and We Can Remember It For You Wholesale is really good. I will say the movie kind of acts as an expansion. The original short story is basically the first half of this, and when we get to Mars and we see the mutants and stuff, I feel the mutants were probably taken from a different Philip K. Dick story, The Golden Man, and when The Golden Man got adapted into the Nicolas Cage movie Next, they don't really focus on the mutant angle, probably because the mutants were lifted from that and placed into this movie. But anyway, this movie is in part written by Dan O'Bannon. Dan O'Bannon, the guy that gave us Alien, John Carpenter's Dark Star, and also he wrote and directed Return of the Living Dead, one of the best zombie movies of all time. I really love Dan O'Bannon's stuff. His sense of seriousness with sarcasm really just pairs well with Philip K. Dick and Paul Verhoeven. These three together, really, really good. Dan O'Bannon also did another Philip K. Dick adaptation, Screamers, based on Second Variety. And if you haven't seen Screamers, I definitely recommend checking it out. Obviously, not as good as Total Recall, but I think definitely worth a watch. Kind of a cult classic there. But anyway, now that we finished those credits, definitely go check this out. As I said earlier, this is an absolute classic, but I do want to say, putting this movie in again, I rewatched it to do this review, and I had seen it before, and I knew I really liked it, but man, just putting it in, and within the first 10 minutes, you're sitting there staring at the screen, and the thought literally went through my mind, I knew Total Recall was good. I knew I liked Total Recall, but it's better than I remembered it being. It's a classic for a reason. It holds up super well, and it really is just super engaging. A good grungy sets, practical effects, and over-the-top action, as well as a philosophical backbone that supports the whole thing. Really, really good. Definitely go check it out. I guess when I dig in deeper to do this review, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'll stop and analyze a few things along the way, and then I'll dig into more specifics after that. But that being said, I won't go too far into the plot. I won't be doing any major spoilers for this movie, so don't worry about that. But let's talk a little bit about what this movie's about. We open up with a dream sequence. Crazy iconic scene. Arnold Schwarzenegger's on Mars, and he's with a beautiful woman. However, he falls down, breaks open his space helmet, and we get one of the most horrifying visuals in science fiction history as the eyes get sucked out of Arnold's head and his tongue starts to swell up. This face at the beginning of Total Recall, oh my gosh, it's absolutely horrifying. But even though this is a dream sequence, it does set up a lot. Who is this woman and what's been going on Mars? What a dream sequence should do. Anyway, he wakes up in bed and there's a different woman there. His real world, maybe, wife, Sharon Stone. And, well, real world in the sense of not being a dream, not a Hollywood reality. But anyway, he's married to Sharon Stone, and she says, you didn't dream about that woman again. So Mars and the other woman has been a reoccurring thing for him. And he sits there watching the news, watching Martian politics, and he wants to go to Mars. It's an ambition of his. But he's a construction worker. He's not particularly well off, although the construction worker aspect does explain why an everyman is super jacked. And yeah, we do get that famous jackhammer scene. That was pretty fun. But anyway, he wants to go to Mars, but he can't ever go to Mars. And his wife says, I don't want to go. You wouldn't like it there. We should find something else. Maybe just go on a galactic cruise or something. But Arnold has this unfulfilled ambition, and he hears about Recall Incorporated. You see, recall implants false memories in your head. Why do you want to do something? So you can remember it later, so you can have this memory of a well-fulfilled life. But what if you didn't actually do that? What if you didn't go to Mars, but someone put in a false memory of you having been to Mars? In that case, isn't it basically like you had done it? I mean, you didn't really, but you could also argue it's safer than actually going and cheaper, and your brain, it would basically be the same thing. A really good and interesting Philip K. Dick concept. You gotta love Dick for all of his crazy concepts there, and just putting something this big and elaborate casually into one of your stories, I mean, that's something you think about well after the pages are over. But anyway, he decides to go to Recall kind of behind the back of his wife, and when he's there, they say, you can go to Mars, but for a little bit extra, we'll add in a story. Why go to Mars as yourself when you can go to Mars as a secret agent? And Arnold jumps on this idea. However, when they start to put him under to do the procedure, he starts to flip out. And it turns out why they're having trouble putting in these new memories is because he was actually a secret agent on Mars, but had his mind wiped. So they're inadvertently putting in memories that were already supposed to be there. So Arnold was a secret agent who didn't know it. He flips out, and after he leaves Recall, a bunch of people start to come out of the shadows and say, you've broken your cover. We're gonna need you to come with us. And it's people like his best friend at work, his wife, his whole life around him was a lie, and now he has to escape. He gets a secret message from the other him. Yeah, kind of reminds me of Paycheck there. He gets a secret message from his other self and a little bag of things to help him out. And his old self in the message says, you have to go to Mars and figure out what's been going on and try to save your old self there. So now he's off on a mission. But remember how I said Martian politics? The situation on Mars has a bit going on. There's a wealthy businessman that literally controls Mars's air supply, and the cheap domes for the lower class citizens are leaking, sending in radiation and literally poisoning the population, and now we've developed mutants. Some of these mutants are telepaths, and their leader is starting a revolution. So, an interesting political situation going on there. The evil corporation, the rebels, the secret Martian underground, and the great practical effects for the mutants. And of course, along the way, there are several twists and turns, solving the mystery, figuring out what the other hem was up to, and constantly escaping from Michael Ironside in cool action sequences. But of course, the big question for this movie is this all really happening? And you have to wonder, because he went to recall and literally asked for this exact same scenario, which turned out to be true. You want a fake memory in your head of being a secret agent on Mars, yet after leaving an unsuccessful recall, you become a secret agent on Mars? And yeah, it's debated, is this movie real, or is Arnold in the booth at recall this whole time, and that's why everything's so fantastical? And it can really be read either way, but one thing I really do like about this movie is it doesn't get held up on this. It's there, it adds more to the depth, it adds to this debate that you can have after the movie, and it's an interesting concept, but it doesn't weigh the movie down, it doesn't sidetrack the action. Actually, if anything, this supports the action. Paul Verhoeven having this idea that maybe none of this is real is allowed to lean in more into the action, and if something gets a little cheesy or over the top, maybe it's all in his head. This is what Arnold wants to do. And it is an interesting concept, especially because, you know, what's the difference really between a false memory and watching a movie where you're literally living a fake life of sorts? So, yeah, how different is Recall than an action movie that allows us to do action sequences that are in part meta humor? And it is really fun. It's over the top, it's bloody, it's crazy. The action sequences are really, really cool. And you get scenes like the infamous bloody train station sequence where bystanders are just killed and their bodies are stepped on by the bad guys. There's blood everywhere. There's brutal headshots. And the action in this movie, it stands out and it has so much more weight than all these modern action sequences that are watered down by the modern rating board and stuff. And really, watch this movie, feel the impact, and compare it to your average modern day PG-13 action sequence that you forget about as soon as you leave the theater. This movie was so good, and I wonder if we could ever get a movie as good as Total Recall again. And there's a ton of just extra little details, all this polish. The sets look really great, both on Earth in a semi-dystopian future, and on Mars, and it's all grungy and run down and worn away by the fighting and the elements. Great sets. Martians have cool practical effects for those mutations that look really, really good, and some good reveals on that stuff as well. And then you get just like tiny little details in this movie. For example, the Johnny Cab. In Philip K. Dick's original short story, he casually mentions that a robot is driving the taxi cab, and Dan O'Bannon and Paul Verhoeven expand this into being the iconic Johnny Cab, a sort of Disney World animatronic that's just there to interact with the passengers and make it feel like someone's really driving the cab, and, you know, just kind of going, hey, welcome to Johnny Cab, where can I take you? Terrible impression, forget that. But an interesting thing, and then when you go to Mars, in a more lower class place, they actually have real humans driving the cab. Good bit of social commentary there as well. Really, really interesting stuff in the tiny details. And I also want to say, Earth is interesting. So many other movies, when you get a concept like this, it would be, okay, just get to Mars already. But the opening sequence on Earth is still good. You know, finding out your whole life is a lie, really good action sequences like the train terminal, you know, seeing all these people turn against you and find out that there was another you, Earth is still cool in this movie, so the movie's cool before you even get to Mars. I really, really do like that. But yeah, you get to Mars, there's the hidden underground Martian rebellion, the hints that the factory is recently closed down because they found alien artifacts adds in a whole nother angle, and this all leads to this big epic finale for this movie, and really just a big cool climax. So whether you want to watch this movie for the serious stuff, because like I said, there's lots of really great Philip K. Dick philosophy from the original story that's in here. Is this all real? Who am I really? Who can I trust? The classic Philip K. Dick man on the run character. Lots of good, serious stuff that acts as a background to support an absolutely fantastic popcorn movie on the surface. This movie, just on the surface, has so much fun and engaging things that if you just want to watch this as an action movie, that is 100% there for you. You do not have to dig into this movie at all to absolutely enjoy it. But if you want to look at the political structure of Mars, if you want to look at the philosophy of what Arnold is going through, that is there if you want to dig in deeper as well. So a ton of really good layers to this, and obviously, probably goes without saying, the second best Philip K. Dick adaptation. The first has to be Blade Runner, but I'd have to say right after Blade Runner, Total Recall is easily the second Philip K. Dick, and it is a really good movie. I cannot recommend this enough. Definitely go out and check it out, but I do want to say, if you check it out, make sure you see Arnold Schwarzenegger on the box. Make sure you get the original and not the remake. I'm going to have to rewatch the remake shortly after this. I've not seen it since the theaters and I don't remember too much about it. I'll do a rewatch and hopefully get to an honest review pretty soon. But if you haven't seen this before, check out the original. Make sure you get the original. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom, and how about my Dan O'Bannon playlist? In this playlist, you can see an Alien physical media collection, my reviews for Dark Star and Return of the Living Dead. I also talked about Soft Landing from Heavy Metal Magazine that would become the opening of the Heavy Metal movie. And of course, if you want to see my review for Dan O'Bannon's other Philip K. Dick adaptation, Screamers, you should be able to find that in the playlist as well. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Philip K. Dick playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.